It looks like Bangladesh might be making a move to thaw its frayed ties with India. In a notable shift, two key Bangladesh diplomatic officers, Sikder Mohammad-Ashur Rahman and Arif Mohammad, are set to return to their posts in Kolkata and Agartala. This after being recalled to Dhaka in December. Now, their departure followed a wave of security incidents that took place. There were some attacks that took place on Bangladesh's diplomatic missions, heightened the tensions between India and Bangladesh. For weeks, these posts have been run by skeleton staff, and now sources indicate that things may look up from here. Both sides have repeatedly emphasized the importance of bilateral trust. There's been talk about how there needs to be movement forward. And of course, the contentious issue remains Sheikh Hasina's presence in India, but also treatment of Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. But beyond these two thorny issues, New Delhi and Dhaka have engaged in diplomatic dialogues. There's been effort to try and see how best to really address these issues and take the relationship forward. Some Indian diplomats question whether this is truly a thaw or merely a temporary calm. The return of these diplomats, who were closely linked with the previous Bangladeshi government, could signal that Bangladesh's interim regime is seeking to re-establish its influence, possibly paving the way for a new chapter in India-Bangladesh relations or setting the stage for deeper divisions. All right, let's get in. I guess joining me this evening, Dr Ashikur Rahman, who's an economist, Policy Research Institute of Bangladesh, and Ambassador Suresh Goel, joining me from Delhi. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for speaking to me on an issue which I feel is important simply because, we've spent a lot of airtime talking about how things are not looking up. But today we are talking about an issue which I think does indicate that maybe there are some opportunities to discuss about how things are looking up. And that's exactly what I want to ask you, Dr. Rahman, that while there are enough and more issues and fissures that exist between India and Bangladesh, do you think this movement, the fact that some diplomats are returning back to missions and High Commission in India is sending a message towards normalcy?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As I have always said, I'm a strong believer in India-Bangladesh ties. We have multi-dimensional relationship. Our trade is over $16 billion. I don't see any rational foreign policy creating long-term antagonism with India. So I feel that if whatever happened in the initial few months, I think normalcy is returning, and it should return. We'll have our point of differences, we'll have our point of agreements, and that should be the way good friends treat with each other. So I'm not surprised. I did not feel, and we spoke I think in August, I never felt that whatever antagonism was happening is a lasting one. I do feel that there are issues where there might be serious disagreements on both sides, maybe rational, but I don't see a future where India and Bangladesh will not cooperate, given how integrated we are in geography, history, trade, and economy. So I do see that good days are ahead. I hope good days are ahead. And if we take rational foreign policy, then engagement, cooperation is the only way forward.
Let's take that to Ambassador Goel as well, that there are some positive notes today that we are discussing. A lot of time has been spent on the growing acrimony between India and Bangladesh, but this looks like some positive movement. Ambassador Goel, how do you read it?
One or two things. I think, first of all, what Dr. Rahman has said makes a lot of logic. It does carry a lot of force, really, in terms of the importance of bilateral engagement between India and Bangladesh. Let us face it, let us put it this way. India and Bangladesh are two important neighbors, and the neighboring countries will have to deal with each other. They may have their areas of disagreement. They may be friends. They may be very good friends. They may have differences, but they have to deal with each other. And what I would really describe the developments of diplomatic restatement, if I may put it this way, the two diplomatic officers returning to their post is a clear indication of recognition of that necessity by Bangladesh government. The missions and the posts are the mechanisms through which they deal with each other, and they will continue. As far as really the good days ahead is concerned, I think enough has been said. There has been a lot of acrimony, and I think the Foreign Secretary's visit to Bangladesh has made some difference. The importance really is to recognize that India and Bangladesh will continue to be the most important relationship in the days to come, in the months and the years to come. And denying that importance will be to the detriment of both the countries. I do hope that this recognition will work in future. The important thing is that several negative elements which have come in, they need to be addressed, but that will take time. Gaurie.
Indeed, that will take time, and one can only hope where things go from here. But, you know, when you talk about necessity, Dr. Rahman, then let me also talk about the fact that at some level, it's quite clear that Bangladesh also needs India. You know, when you make such positive movements, it's also because you want to go back to normalcy, because economic ties between the two countries require that normalcy to happen. And, you know, some of the GDP data that has come out indicates that when it comes to Bangladesh, it's seen a huge change in its economy, in its economic landscape in the last 1 year, especially in the last 6 months. And probably steps like these are the kind of roadmap you need towards going back to normalcy.
I agree with you. I mean, we have an interdependent relationship. We are importing roughly 16 to 18 billion dollars of goods and services from India. India is a big market for us in terms of we go there for healthcare. Bangladesh is a big market for India in terms of selling goods and services. So we have a strong mutual dependence in terms of security, in terms of economy. So as I said earlier, I don't see a rational foreign policy on both sides that creates irrational antagonism. There will always be point of differences. Bangladesh economy was hit by unrest in July, devastating floods in August. Our economy took a big hit. Inflation has been very high for the last 2 years.
Yes.
We need trade with India to keep supply chains
Indeed.
of vegetables, of imports, of food items. I think it's a very, very strong interdependent relationship. And I hope rationality prevails. As an economist, I can only hope.
Yeah, let me take that to Ambassador Goel as we wrap things up here, which is that, Ambassador Goel, in your assessment, the top 1 or 2 things that you would want to ensure that some of these good steps are not marred by acrimonious steps on the other side or bitter remarks on the other side. What would you want to follow up as the next steps after this important positive movement?
I think the first step that must be taken is to recreate or regenerate, if I may say so, that atmosphere of confidence and trust in each other, which has been completely marred since the overthrow of Sheikh Hasina. Several steps have been taken by Bangladesh, if I may name so, like in terms of cancelling the training of judicial officers in India, for whatever reason, even though India was completely funding it. Several things have happened really, and the environment of creating violence against minorities, that has touched on the people of India. I think the first thing that can be taken is to address these issues, quieten them down. There is a small population which is encouraging these trends. So deal with them with a strong hand. Enter into a conversation again with a view to future. I think one of the most important things has been the connectivity. The bus services and trains between India and Bangladesh, which have been stopped, they should be restarted so that people can come and go again. Yes.
Absolutely. Those are some of the positive things. And I must, as I wrap this up, I must say that after a very long time, after weeks, I am ending a discussion on Bangladesh on a positive note of some optimism. And that gives me confidence that maybe there will be better days ahead as far as the relationship is concerned. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and speaking to me.